He came home the morning after my birthday. No gift. No apology. Just excuses. He said his ex needed him. That she was having a hard time. That I was overthinking everything. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I listened. And that was the moment I realized something. This wasn't about my birthday. It was about how long I had been teaching myself to accept being second. So I said nothing. I just made sure. He saw me walk away for good. He didn't slam the door. That was the first thing I noticed. Just the soft click of the lock. The familiar sound of keys landing on the entry table. The ordinary noises of a husband coming home. Except nothing about that morning was ordinary. It was 7:12 a.m. The day after my birthday. And I was still sitting at the kitchen table. Staring at a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. I hadn't slept. I'd spent the entire night watching the clock crawl past midnight. Knowing exactly where my husband was. And pretending I didn't. Relax, his voice drifted in from the hallway, casual and unbothered. You're overthinking this. He appeared in the doorway a moment later. Tired, yes. Disheveled, slightly. But guilty? No. That absence hit harder than any apology ever could. She called me around 8. He continued, rubbing his temples. She was having a breakdown. What was I supposed to do, ignore her? I didn't answer. He mistook my silence for permission and kept going. She's been struggling since her mom got sick. She just needed someone to talk to. I looked up at him then. My name is Clara Myers. I was 29 years old. And in 4 years of marriage, I had learned the difference between an explanation and a performance. This was a performance. You didn't answer your phone, I said quietly. I called you 6 times. He shrugged. It was on silent. Didn't see them until this morning. As if missing my birthday were an inconvenience. Not a choice. Something settled inside me. Not anger. Not shock. Something heavier. Quieter. I thought about all the times I'd explained him away. All the moments I'd swallowed disappointment. Because keeping the peace felt easier than facing what it might cost me. My eyes drifted to my left hand. The wedding ring sat there. Simple, gold, familiar. I used to love the way it felt. Without saying a word, I slid it off and placed it on the table. The sound it made was barely audible. But it stopped him cold. What are you doing? He asked. I stood up. My heart was racing. But my legs felt steady. As I passed him, I caught the faint trace of perfume on his shirt. Sweet, unfamiliar, undeniable. I didn't look at him. Clara, seriously. What is this? The silence I gave him was the first honest thing I'd offered all morning. I hadn't always been this quiet. Before him, I'd been loud. Opinionated. Unapologetically myself. My friends used to joke that you could hear my laugh from across any room. Somewhere along the way, that version of me had learned how to shrink. And as I pulled my suitcase from the closet and started packing, I tried to remember when I'd first mistaken that shrinking for love. It didn't start with my birthday. That was just the moment everything finally lined up. The truth is, the warning signs had been there for years. Quiet, polite, easy to excuse. I just kept finding reasons not to see them. When I first met Evan, he was charming in an effortless way. Attentive. Funny. The kind of man who remembered small details and made you feel chosen. He told me about his past early on. About Naomi. The relationship that ended badly. The woman he swore was history. I believed him. I wanted to. At first, her name came up rarely. A casual mention. A story from college. A mutual friend's wedding. Nothing threatening. And every time I felt that small tightening in my chest, I told myself I was being insecure. After all, he had chosen me. But over time, the boundaries softened. She texted him on holidays. Called him late at night just to check in. Sent photos of memories I'd never been part of. Each time, he had an explanation ready. She doesn't really have anyone else. She's going through a lot. It would be cruel to cut her off. And each time, I nodded. Because I didn't want to be the wife who demanded reassurance. There were moments that should have stopped me. Like the night he stepped outside to take her call. On our anniversary. or the way his phone tilted away from me whenever her name lit up the screen, or how defensive he became when I asked the simplest questions. "You're imagining things," he'd say. "Why are you trying to start a problem?" So I learned a new skill. I learned how to doubt myself. I told myself love meant trust. That marriage required flexibility. That being understanding was a strength. I confused patience with silence. And silence with maturity. Meanwhile, something inside me was slowly eroding. Not loudly. Gradually. The night before my birthday, I remember standing in front of the mirror, adjusting my dress, wondering why I felt so uneasy. I had planned dinner, invited friends, booked the restaurant weeks in advance. He kissed my cheek on his way out that afternoon. "I'll be back early," he promised. I smiled. And believed him. Looking back, that belief wasn't naive. It was generous. But generosity, I was learning, only works when it's mutual. That morning, after he came home empty-handed, after he explained himself like I was a problem to be managed, all those memories rearranged themselves. Not as isolated incidents, but as a pattern. A pattern I could no longer ignore. I didn't confront him that day. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I did something far more final. I started paying attention. I didn't confront him after that morning. Not because I was afraid of the answer, but because I already had it. For the first time, I stopped trying to fix what he refused to protect. I went through my days as usual. I went to work, answered emails, smiled at coworkers. From the outside, nothing looked different. But inside, I had stepped back. I stopped checking his location. Stopped asking when he'd be home. Stopped rehearsing conversations in my head that I knew would go nowhere. The silence between us grew. Not heavy. Honest. He noticed, of course. Men like him always do. Not when something is wrong, but when something stops revolving around them. "You've been distant," he said one evening, scrolling through his phone while talking to me. "I'm just tired," I replied. That wasn't a lie. Just incomplete. I began to see our marriage more clearly. Once I stopped standing in the middle of it. The imbalance. The emotional labor. The way I was always the one adjusting. I had been bending for so long that I forgot what standing straight felt like. One night, while he was in the shower, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. I didn't grab it. I didn't need to. The name lit up the screen. Naomi. No context. No urgency. Just familiarity. And instead of pain, what I felt surprised me. Relief. Because now I knew something important. I didn't need proof. I didn't need a confession. I didn't need him to choose me. I could choose myself. The next morning, after he left for work, I opened the closet. I pulled out a suitcase I hadn't touched in years. Not in anger. Not in panic. With focus. I folded my clothes carefully. Chose what mattered. Left behind what didn't. Each item felt lighter than the last. When he came home that evening, the apartment looked the same. But I wasn't. "I'm going to stay with my sister for a while," I said calmly. He frowned. "For how long?" I met his eyes. "I don't know," I said. "And that's the point." He laughed softly, as if I were being dramatic. "You're overreacting," he said. "We can talk about this." I picked up my bag. "There's nothing left to discuss," I replied. That was the moment he finally looked afraid. I walked past him without another word. No speech. No accusations. Just the quiet understanding that I was done asking for space in a life that no longer had room for me. As the door closed behind me, I didn't feel broken. I felt clear. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't walking away to be chased. I was walking away to be free. I didn't disappear. That was intentional. I answered messages from mutual friends. I showed up to work. I lived my life, openly, calmly, without theatrics. I wanted him to see that I wasn't hiding. I was moving on. The first few days, he barely reacted. A couple of texts. "You okay? Let's talk when you're ready." I didn't respond. Silence, I had learned, wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. By the end of the week, his tone changed. He started calling. Late at night. Early in the morning. Apologies followed, carefully worded, incomplete. I didn't mean to hurt you. It wasn't what you think. You're making this bigger than it needs to be. I listened to the voicemails once. Then I archived them. What shifted everything was accidental. A mutual friend posted photos from a small gathering downtown. Nothing dramatic. Just people laughing. A shared table. Me, smiling. I hadn't noticed the photo until my phone buzzed. His name. Again. Who were you with? He asked when I finally answered. The question surprised me. Not because he cared, but because he suddenly realized. He wasn't part of the picture anymore. Friends, I said. There was a pause. You look happy. I didn't correct him. The next time we saw each other was unplanned. A grocery store aisle. Tuesday evening. Bright lights, ordinary shelves. He froze when he saw me. I didn't. I kept walking. Clara, he called out. I stopped, briefly. He looked smaller somehow. Uncertain. I didn't think you'd actually leave, he admitted. That was the moment. Not when he missed me. Not when he apologized. When he realized I was serious. I didn't leave to teach you a lesson, I said quietly. I left because I was done teaching myself how to accept less. He nodded, but I could tell he didn't fully understand. And for once, that wasn't my responsibility. As I walked away, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt settled. The kind of peace that doesn't need witnesses. Later that night, I blocked his number. Not in anger. In closure. Because I didn't want my future interrupted by someone who only noticed my value once it was no longer available. I didn't need him to chase me. I needed him to see that when I walked away. I wasn't hoping he'd follow. I was choosing a life where I no longer had to wait. Time didn't fix anything. It clarified everything. The days turned into weeks. And the space between us stopped feeling temporary. It felt intentional. He tried one last time. A long message sent late at night. He apologized, not just for my birthday, but for everything he might have overlooked. He said he missed me. Said he was confused. Said he wanted to start over. I read it slowly. Then I put my phone down. And didn't reply. Not because I was angry. Because I was finished. Living away from him didn't feel lonely. It felt quieter. I noticed things again. Morning light through the curtains. Music I used to love. The sound of my own thoughts without interruption. I hadn't lost myself overnight. I had been setting myself aside, piece by piece. And now, I was picking those pieces up. Friends asked if I was okay. I told them the truth. I'm better than okay, I said. I'm honest. For the first time in a long time. I wasn't trying to convince anyone, including myself, that things were fine. They simply were. I stopped replaying conversations in my head. Stopped wondering what I could have done differently. Because the answer no longer mattered. Love that requires silence isn't love. It's maintenance. A month later, I filed the paperwork. No dramatic meeting. No final argument. Just a decision, signed and submitted. When he found out, he called. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to explain. On my next birthday, I did something simple. I took the day off. I went somewhere quiet. I bought myself flowers. Not to prove anything. But to mark the moment. I stopped waiting for someone else to choose me. I don't tell this story because I regret loving him. I tell it because I learned something important. Walking away doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes, it means you finally listened. I didn't leave to be dramatic. I didn't leave to be chased. I left because I understood my worth. Without needing his agreement. And that was the moment. Everything truly changed.